The approach that we use is sort of more psychology-based. We really thought about how each character would use their costume as a tool, and I thought that was a really fun way to approach each character's look. In early prep, I think my first conversation was with Steve, mainly to talk about his glasses, because we knew that they were going to be a very important part of his look for the show. Something that came up was that he had never worn jeans before for any part he's ever played. We thought that was fascinating, so we sort of decided that Charles would be a jeans guy. His character is finding comfort in this uniform that he's created for himself. The repetitiveness of his look, basically always wearing the same jeans, always wearing the same shoes, and just switching out the shirt, but even the shirt is the exact same cut.
Oh, hello. Filming something today?
We thought of the hat as his mask. Sort of like this is how he's able to sort of hide himself. You know, like a hat literally with a brim can help you hide. But then at the same time, the hat was sort of his connection to the character he played, Brazos. Whenever he puts the hat on, it's more that he's Brazos and less that he's Charles. So he's able to kind of use that to get through social situations that maybe he wouldn't normally be comfortable in.
Have you forgotten? I'm Brazos.
For Oliver, you know, we said that his clothing was being used as a performance. You know, he's always dressing for the part. He's always trying to dress in a way that gets what he wants from the person he's interacting with. So we had him changing 3 or 4 times in an episode. You know, he interacts with his son, he dresses more humbly, I would say. And then when he interacts with Charles, he's in director mode. And so he puts on more of a director's look. And sort of in the vein of that theatricality idea, we said that, you know, his scarf was his hero piece and that it sort of represents almost a theater curtain.
New York can be a fucking lie. All the eyes on you all the time.
Selena, you know, I would say the main thing we talked about was making sure to make her feel like Mabel, to make her turn into this other person, because Selena as Selena Gomez is such a pop icon. Her clothes are a bit looser, a bit more bohemian. She was using her costume as armor, like her big coats, and that this was her way to sort of like power through New York City and tell people, you know, stay away and to protect herself. In New York, it's such a wide array of types of people coming from all different backgrounds.
Does this mean we get to use our fireplaces again?
Yeah, he was the guy with bad asthma, right? Since he's dead, we should be able to use them now.
So we wanted to make sure that different socioeconomic backgrounds were represented in the people who lived in the building. And certainly in the sort of bigger lobby meetings, we gave every background person a specific job. As the costume department, myself and my assistant, we just created their jobs and said, you know, this guy is, you know, works in tech and this woman is a stay-at-home mom, and made sure that we had enough looks as far as, you know, levels of wealth.
We good?
There's something about how the music works with the story and the dialogue. It adds like this magical quality to the show, is that relationship. One doesn't work without the other, and it's like a little marriage that's really, really fun to play with.
We need to focus. Only murders in the building.
Only murders in the building.
John Hoffman, who co-created the show with Steve Martin, I think he wanted something that felt classical and timeless so it could score the Arconia, but then also modern, old and new, sort of reflective of Steve and Marty and Selena, right? Just this idea of there's a multi-generational angle to the entire show. And off of reading the script, there were a couple ideas that came, and I played him those ideas as well on the phone. And on one of them, he said, "That's my show right there." It was this piece I wrote called Vantage. It's probably one of my most favorite pieces of music I've ever written. The music had this balance between like magical realism and comedy and drama and mystery. There's a main title theme. And then I was like, oh, da-dum-dum. I was just noodling like that. He asked me to make it more New York. Oh, this needs Home Depot buckets playing the percussion. And so what you hear on the main title is that theme with a whole orchestra playing along with it, but you also hear these buckets being played. To me, the music of the show is what's inside the walls of the Arconia. It's almost part of the architecture of the building. When you hear it when you're inside the courtyard, it feels almost like there could be somebody in a window playing. And when you're in the elevator, I have my little elevator theme.
Oh, it's nice seeing you again.
You too. Hope to hear you playing tonight, like always.
You'll hear me sooner or later.
What I'm always trying to find is the sweet spot between authenticity, story, and visual content, where those things come together. That's where design is at its best, and I think we did that in the show. New York is all important to the show. It's a character. It frames everything that happens in the show. In New York, you do get all of these people stacked on top of one another, and in a building like this, that's 120 years old, you don't know when these things changed hands. These apartments may have been in families for a very long time. And so the people living in them may have had a lot of money at one point, and now suddenly they don't. These things can all exist together in a building like the Arconia.
Just when it's all starting to feel the same, that's when you get hit by something you never saw coming.
The Arconia is based on a sort of unique New York building, this block-long, block-wide structure that has a courtyard. We really wanted to embrace that ground plan, which is quite specific. And the apartments, the way they break up within that ground plan is also a very specific thing.
What the? Who are you?
I'm remodeling.
Mabel's is probably the closest to the original ground plans that existed in the building. Oliver's, being the home of a theater director, that's a fairly unique thing. That's a fairly New York specific thing.
I mean, we got our places 30 years ago when the Arconia was affordable, but would your parents have a place there or something?
Good God, you don't have to answer that, Mabel. I mean, unless you want to, because I'm also curious.
Charles is much more updated. Steve has a great eye personally for art and architecture and furniture and decor. And I got a chance to ask him a few questions about what he thought Charles would have in his place. It's an important thing to think about when you're building the backstory of a character. Could they actually afford this piece of art? The nice hot vegetables, for example, in his kitchen is a piece that's in the 6 digits, which is not enough for him to retire on, but it does show his taste.
Turkey delivery.
Hope you're hungry.
Anita, are we expecting a turkey?
I don't think it's related in any way to the way that Sting actually lives. His apartments are a little less on the nose than that, but we did need to hit the rock star vibe. This is a place that we don't go back to a lot. So we really had to punch it and make it feel very specific very quickly. So we made some big gestures. The shape of the apartment is a little bit different. We added some screen elements.
Okay, thank you for the turkey. Please stay away from Sting.